Breaking news from around your world on this Tuesday, June 4th, 2019. I'm Larry Rice. The Trump administration has introduced new travel restrictions on U.S. citizens visiting Cuba, prohibiting stops by cruise ships and blocking organized tour groups. Citing Cuba's domestic repression and its support for the regime of Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela, the Trump administration said the measures are designed to prevent Cuba's military and security services from profiting off of the country's tourism industry. The Treasury Department and the State Department said group educational or cultural trips to Cuba or people-to-people travel would no longer be permitted. The restrictions will mean an end to cruise ship stops for U.S. tourists, as well as visits by yachts and private and corporate aircraft. The administration did not say whether the rules would affect U.S. airlines that recently began to fly again to the island. The changes take effect Wednesday, but Americans who have already booked a trip will be permitted to travel to the island. John Bolton, President Donald Trump's national security advisor, tweeted, "We will continue to take actions to restrict the Cuban regime's access to U.S. dollars." Fed Chairman Jerome Powell said Tuesday that the Federal Reserve is prepared to respond if it decides the Trump administration's trade conflicts are threatening the U.S. economy. Powell didn't explicitly say what the Fed would do, but expectations are rising that the Fed will cut rates at least once and possibly two or more times before year's end, in part because of the consequences of the trade war. There is concern that the U.S. expansion, which next month will become the longest on record, could face growing risks of a recession as retaliatory tariffs weaken U.S. exports. Investors read his remarks as a signal that the Fed will likely cut interest rates later this year. Stock prices jumped after Powell spoke, and the Dow Jones Industrial Average was up by more than 400 points in afternoon trading. Investors in the futures market are pricing in a 59% chance of a Fed rate cut by July. In his remarks, Powell called persistently low inflation the preeminent monetary policy challenge of our time because it limits the Fed's ability to support the economy by cutting rates. Next month, the economic expansion will become the longest period of uninterrupted growth on record, surpassing the 10-year expansion of the 1990s. President Trump eased up Tuesday on his frequent criticism of outgoing British Prime Minister Theresa May over her handling of the tortured Brexit deal, declaring that history will remember her fondly if the United Kingdom can successfully leave the European Union. The president's unexpected compliments for May come just days before she is set to resign the leadership of her party after failing to secure a Brexit deal. She will depart as prime minister once her successor has been chosen. Trump told May at a news conference near the prime minister's Downing Street office, "I have greatly enjoyed working with you. You are a tremendous professional and a person who loves her country very much." Trump said Britain and the U.S. would be able to strike a phenomenal trade deal once the U.K. had left the EU, music to the ears of pro-Brexit Britons. Trump also said he anticipated no limitations on the future sharing of intelligence with the UK as the U.S. continues to press its longtime ally to ban Chinese company Huawei amid espionage and trade concerns. Tourists visited Beijing's Tiananmen Square under increased security Tuesday, the 30th anniversary of the bloody crackdown on student-led pro-democracy protests there. The students in 1989 called for reforms, such as a free press and freedom to demonstrate. But some exiled former protest leaders said those goals were farther off today, despite years of economic development. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo called for China to release all political prisoners as he saluted the heroes of the Chinese people who bravely stood up 30 years ago in Tiananmen Square to demand their rights. A spokesman for the Chinese Foreign Ministry responded by saying that Pompeo had maliciously attacked China's political system. Russia's leading internet company said Tuesday that it's committed to data privacy as it responded to reports that the National Intelligence Agency is pressuring it into handing over encryption keys. privately owned Yandex is vulnerable to the 2016 law that requires online companies to store all personal user data in Russia and be prepared to share it with authorities. Leading business daily RBC wrote Tuesday that Yandex has been under pressure by the intelligence agency FSB to hand over encryption keys to its email service and file hosting service. Yandex, arguably Russia's most successful internet company, which runs Russia's most popular search engine and email service, among other things, did not refute the reports, saying merely that concerns over national security should not infringe on user privacy. Yandex's statement came a day after the Russian communication regulator said that it's now requiring dating app Tinder to hand over data on its users. Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei said on Tuesday that Tehran would not be deceived by President Trump's offer of negotiations and would not give up its missile program. Iran and the United States have been drawn into starker confrontation in the past month, a year after Washington pulled out of a deal between Iran and global powers to curb Tehran's nuclear program in return for lifting international sanctions. Trump has called on Iran to come to the negotiating table to reach a new deal and said last week that Iran has a chance to be a great country with the same leadership. We're not looking for regime change. I just want to make that clear. We're looking for no nuclear weapons. Reacting to those comments, Khamenei said in a speech broadcast on state television, "In the missile program, they know we have reached a point of deterrence and stability. They want to deprive us from it, but they will never succeed." Khamenei was speaking at a ceremony marking the 30th anniversary of the death of Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, founder of the Islamic Republic of Iran. A federal judge in Washington rejected House Democrats' request to block President Trump from shifting money appropriated for other projects to pay for construction of his long-promised border wall. Judge Trevor McFadden said the House lacked standing to challenge the president's action and that it would be inappropriate for a court to resolve such a dispute between the president and Congress. McFadden said he was not suggesting that Congress may never sue the executive to protect its powers, but he felt that Congress had several political arrows in its quiver to counter perceived threats to its sphere of power. The lawsuit argued that Trump was violating Congress's power over federal spending by reappropriating money to pay for the wall after Congress declined to fund it. The House passed a $19.1 billion disaster spending bill after an extended delay. The bill, which provides aid to areas devastated by flooding, wildfires, tornadoes, and hurricanes, passed 354 to 58 after conservative Republicans delayed it 3 times in the House. President Trump has signaled that he plans to sign the legislation, even though it doesn't include money he wanted to address what he has declared to be an immigration and humanitarian emergency at the U.S.-Mexico border. The bill was bogged down for months as Trump battled with Democrats over spending on hurricane-ravaged Puerto Rico, which will get more than $1 billion under the bill. Senate Appropriations Chairman Richard Shelby of Alabama said the delays should never have happened. House Appropriations Committee Chair Nita Lowey of New York said the vote marked a rejection of political stunts and grandstanding that held up aid to devastated families. Apple announced that it plans to break up iTunes into 3 separate Mac applications for music, TV, and podcasts. The iTunes app, which Apple used to become an entertainment powerhouse, will be replaced in the company's new Catalina operating system with new standalone versions of Apple Music, Apple Podcasts, and the Apple TV app, according to Craig Federighi, Apple's Senior Vice President of Software Engineering. The iPhone maker also said at its annual developers conference in San Jose, California, that it would roll out a new Sign In with Apple feature that will allow users to log into apps using Face ID authentication. Federighi compared the new option to Facebook and Google login buttons, saying they can be convenient but can also come at the cost of your privacy. Emma Boettcher, a 27-year-old University of Chicago librarian, beat James Holzhauer on the Monday night episode of Jeopardy, ending his winning streak at 32 games. Holzhauser won more than $2.4 million, and he lost just $58,485 short of what he needed to break Ken Jennings' record Jeopardy haul of $2.5 million, which he won over 74 games in 2004. Boettcher will defend her title in the episode airing Tuesday. 4 years ago, she wrote an award-winning master's paper on the game show's questions as a graduate student at the University of North Carolina. Jeopardy fans were outraged on Monday after news that Boettcher had broken Holzhauer's streak circulated online before the episode showing their showdown had aired. And that's your update for this Tuesday, June 4th, 2019. I'm Larry Rice. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful day.